Welcome, everybody, to Real Talk Live. I'm Ben Ferguson, along with John Contadella. And today's topic's kind of a mixed bag. We're just going to kind of jump into the jobs that we used to have and the way things are happening these days and what's important. I want to talk about when I was a little kid, my brothers, they stayed home and they wanted to watch TV and they didn't really do anything. I had to get money. I'm hustling, man. I'm out. I remember my very, very first job. There was a tavern that was down the street, not down the street, but all the ways away. And the guy said to me one time, he goes, "Hey, do you want to clean up Sunday morning?" He goes, "Do you want to clean up around the tavern, you and your buddy? And I'll pay you some money." I'm like, "Well, yeah, we do." So we each got one of those pickle buckets, he called, and we cleaned up. And he gave me $2 and a can of Coke and a bag of chips, and same with my buddy. And so I'm like, "That's cool." We're like 10 or 11.
Yeah, it's a good deal.
Very good deal. So I'm thinking, how can I do better? And I thought, the next week I'm going to go there and I'm going to pretend, or I'm just going to go by myself, right? I'm thinking I'll get $4. And so I went and did the whole thing, and he gave me $2 again. I'm like, $2? He goes, "Yeah, your friend's not here. It's $2 a piece." So I'm like, "Oh, okay." And I'm again 10.
Light bulbs going off.
Yeah, I'm like, if I can do this, you want to play? So the next week, and there's a 7-Eleven next door. And I said, "Hey, I'm here." And he goes, "Hey, you by yourself?" I'm like, No, my buddy's over at 7-Eleven. I need 2 buckets, please. And so I got 2 buckets, and I threw stuff in both buckets and walked around and came back to him. And I said, "Okay, we're done." He goes, "All right, where's your buddy?" He goes, "Oh, he went back to 7-Eleven. I can get his money and his chips and all his stuff for him." And so then I got $4, 2 chips, 2 Cokes. And
How long did you get away with that?
well, until something better came along, but
Yeah.
I did that for a while. That it's tough. That's a tough age, for 10 to 12 to get money. I mean, that's when I was. We moved to a nice neighborhood, but we didn't have any money. But we were like the Clampetts, in Beverly Hills, not Beverly Hills, but anyway, it was a nice neighborhood. So I'm hustling, man. You rake leaves, you mow lawns, you shovel snow, you do whatever, and finally they just said, "Fine, do it." Oh, and then I had a paper route, and talk about the worst job ever.
Yeah, I don't even think they do those. Do kids do those
No,
anymore?
they can't do it. It's illegal. No, for a while there was like families doing 9 different routes. But when I was a kid, we were all 12, 13 years old, and it was slave labor. We would. So my route was, you had to walk all these stairs to get to these houses to put it on the porch, and then on the other side of the street it was the opposite. So I would throw the newspaper, and half the times it would just open up, and it was beautiful. It looked like birds in flight, and I just look at them and I'm like, "Nah," and I just keep going. I wasn't good. And I remember Mrs. Swenson, she said with a smile on her face, she goes, "We had to put our newspaper in the oven the other day to dry it off. You are the worst paper boy we've ever had." And I'm like, "I'm sorry. It's as good as it gets for now, though." So,
wow, I've never heard of that.
but
Putting the newspaper in the oven. You learn
Yeah.
something new every day.
yeah,
So you had, this starts early, right? The Paperboy route thing. I never did this as a
the
kid.
Paperboy route thing started after school. We got off the bus and went to this thing called the Paper Shack. It was a plywood green box that you get your newspapers from. Sunday morning, you had to bring your metal cart, because Sunday newspapers were so heavy, you couldn't carry them. So, and that was like 4 a.m. It was nuts.
Oh,
And I remember one time, it was pouring down rain, Seattle, Washington, right? It's pouring down rain. I get my papers. It's 4 a.m, and my wheels just give out, and everything falls apart. And then I didn't know what to do, so I went and got my mom, and I thought she was going to be yelling at me, but she was the coolest thing in the world. She just got in the car, put all the stuff in the trunk, and she just trolled around, and I did my paper route, and she brought me to Jack in the Box afterwards for a breakfast jack. And
that
I had
does
a
sound
cool
cool.
mom.
Yeah.
Really cool. There's one time I got to bring this up. It's an interesting story. My brother and I were each other's throats, and he would just pound. He was huge, and he would just pound me. And one day I'm like, "Screw you, I'm out of here." So I ran away. And I was probably junior high school, and I was gone for a few days because I had friends that had just set me up. And I remember I went to this one kid's house, and he was new in school, and I didn't really know him that well, but he lived in the neighborhood, and I really liked his bike. He had this little orange mountain bike, and I'm like, how much for the bike? And he said $20, and I gave him $20. So he put the bike on the side of the house, and I spent the night at his house, and the next morning, the bike's gone. Someone stole the bike. And I'm like, oh, man, we don't really get things stolen in this neighborhood. This is weird.
Yeah, something's off.
Yeah, so about, a couple days later, I'm back home. Things are cool, right? And it dawned on me, that son of a you-know-what took the bike. So I told my mom, "Mom, I need your help. This is what happened. I'm pretty sure the bike's in his garage. I need you to come troll down the alley with me. And she goes, let's go. I'm like, right
Whoa,
on.
Mom's ready to be an enforcer. This is cool.
So Mom and I are going down the alley. I'm going to hit the lights. So she hits the lights, and we're creeping. And I say, stop here. And I got out, and I walked about 3 houses, and I went down from the alley, down this driveway to these old, this garage had these 2 barn door things, old house. And I remember opening it and sneaking in and seeing light through the cracks and hearing people talking and walking. It was really weird. It was like I'm busted into somebody's house.
Oh, man.
But I look over with my flashlight, and there it is, the little orange bike. So I snagged it, got it up, put it in my mom's trunk, boom, we went home. That kid was in my first class in Woodshop. So the next day, I got there. Now, there's a classroom, and then here's where you do the woodshop. So I sat in the classroom just to watch him, because I knew he was going to be a little late, because he didn't have transportation. And he came in about 20 minutes late, and he's like, I say, hey, how you doing, man? He's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm like, oh, that's good. And that was it.
Never said anything. Huh?
Didn't need to.
Yeah.
He knew, and I knew, and that was it. But anyway, getting back to jobs, restaurants were my thing. I always liked to be a busboy. I always wanted cash, and they fed you.
Yeah.
And
those 2 things are important as a kid.
yeah, and the hustle. I remember there was one restaurant I worked at, and it was called the Hungry Turtle, and I loved it. It was right on Lake Union, but they just didn't give me much. I worked my tail off, and they didn't give me any money. And the place was packed, and I'm sweating. And at the end of the night, this lady goes, "Oh, I think it just wasn't a very good night." I'm like, "Okay, I was here, and I saw everything that happened. So yes, it was a good night."
Yeah.
So that's when I started doing my $3, $5 trick, because everybody would leave $5 bills. So I always kept $3 in all my pockets, and I would, as I'm cleaning up, I'd throw 3 down and take the 5, and so it was kind of like
All
a magic
right,
trick.
yeah. And now you're still getting a percentage of the
I'm throwing
3.
the 3.
So
I'll get the 3 down by the cup, take the 5. 5 goes in this pocket, and by the end of the night, I made more money than any of them. And then they're like, you know what? Things really weren't that well. And I'm like, I agreed, they probably weren't.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. And what you're giving me is just fine. So you had to make an honest waiter out of
kind
them.
of balance it out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I remember you telling me a story about you working at a Chinese food restaurant.
Oh.
And the guy, this is,
So
I could almost picture
I was
it.
in Santa Rosa going to school, and this Chinese restaurant, it was a really nice, it was being built. And as soon as it was done being built, boom, I ran right there, and I said, hey, I want to work here. And they hired me as a busboy. It was like a 5-star Chinese restaurant, tablecloths, and the Chu family. And I love the Chu family. I don't know where they are, but I absolutely adore them. They were just the nicest people in the world. But you go in the kitchen, and there's like 8 woks, and they're all gas woks.
Uh-huh.
And it was a state-of-the-art kitchen. And I don't know how they got their cooks, but they got them from China. None of them spoke a lick of English. I don't know. There was something that couldn't have been legal, because they were like, it was a weird deal. It was like hush hush. And anyway, they're all doing their thing, and they all had a tray of all kinds of powder, like chemicals. And they would have the cigarette in their mouth, and they'd be going doom, 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 doom. It was fun to watch them. But then they would take a little bit, their little tool, they'd take a little powder here, and it was all MSG, and it was all total crap.
Yeah, it's probably garlic powder and whatever else. Yeah.
Well, and MSG, because
yeah.
I remember how good it tastes. But I remember I'm watching the cigarette, and the ash is getting long, and the guy's just going like that, and it's busier than hell, and it just goes right in, and he just... It had to have been like a peppery taste or something. Maybe that's why people drove from San Francisco. A lot of movie stars went there. Like Harry Morgan from MASH, I met him, and Eric Idle from John Cleese's buddy. But to watch them, all the ashes went in the food, and that's just the way it was.
Didn't bother him anyhow.
No. I remember I would eat everything. I was college age, so we were like dogs. We just ate everything. And I remember the waitresses used to go, man, you are just such a pig. And one day there was this, the garbage can by the dishwasher that's just filled with just this nasty stuff.
Yep.
And so I grabbed a piece of food and put it a napkin down and put the food right on the napkin and waited till she came in. And I'm like, "Did you get anything to eat at all?" She goes, "Well, you're a pig. That's all you think about." And I'm like, "You know what? I'm not going to wait. I'll just grab something here." And I grabbed it and ate it. And she just ran out of there going, "Oh my God." It was fun messing with them.
Yeah, that was the best part about working at restaurants was the kitchen, the behind the scenes stuff.
Behind the scenes, you got food, you got fed, and you walked home with cash.
I mean, you left tired, you left beat at 1 a.m. or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, you always had money in your pocket.
Yeah, but when you go to school, that's perfect because you need food. And
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're in school, that's what you're spending all your money on. It's food. So this is a win-win, you know?
yeah, speaking of, I told you about that, how we went through the neighborhood and collected our canned goods.
Yeah.
That was the holiday PSA.
And you actually, you know, the Chinese restaurant, you won some sort of employee award there, I think, too.
You know
became
what?
a member.
I did.
That year.
That family was so nice. When I left, they gave me a party, and a present. And I opened it up, and I have a picture somewhere, and it was a gray members only jacket. Back when members only was like the you know what.
Dude, they're back, man. What do you mean?
I know
they've been back for a few years.
Yeah, that's how nice this family was. I remember Rita. They had Chinese gambling upstairs, and as a busboy, I would just go upstairs, and they were like, "Well, what are you doing up here?" And I'm like, "I'm just giving, I'd give them tea and water," and then they liked me after a while because they were playing these. It was like Chinese dominoes, but there was a lot of money.
So it's like a poker game or whatever, but with dominoes type thing. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
But at first, when I went up there, like I was the FBI or something like that.
Well, you made it sound like it was like a full-scale casino at first.
It was, because there was people up there that you would never see in the restaurant. But I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
but
they're probably cousins and stuff. Yeah.
Here's the thing: we could order the lunch special, which was almond chicken, sweet and sour pork, and rice, which was the most incredible thing in the world. Or you had a choice: you could wait till later and eat with the cooks. And they ate the real thing. So my brother got a job there. That's another story. He comes in an hour late, drunk off his what. And he's just standing there. And I'm like, dude, what's wrong with you? And he's at the dishwasher. I'm like, do something. Wash it dish. And he's like, ugh. And they're like, that's your brother? And I'm, oh, God, that's a whole other story. That's I'll never forgive him for that. But anyway, where was
I? Talking about the
food.
The food, yeah.
With
the
the Chinese,
eating with the cooks,
the cooks, yeah. So they had these plates that look like guppies. You know what guppies are? Just
little fish.
Yeah, and I would just did what they did, and I would, black beans and guppies, and it was really good. But then one time, I remember seeing a cook kind of acting kind of funny. He's bringing something in, like, hey, what are you doing? And he lifts up, he goes, ha ha, woof, woof, and runs in the kitchen. So I think he actually... Because that's what
way.
I'm telling you, he had a hind leg. I don't know what it was.
He was messing with you.
It was an animal.
It's probably like a lamb or
size
something.
of a dog. That's all I'm going to say. But that was one of the nicest families that I'd ever met. So we were talking about restaurants. I want to talk about restaurants nowadays because you and I had a little discussion over a couple of different restaurants in town, and I don't have a problem ratting them out, which I'm going to do in just a second. Because if I go to a restaurant and I'm treated well, I will tell the world. I had dinner at Lucky's, I don't know, a month ago, and it was incredible food. Of course, Lucky's is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's going to be good service and good food. It was incredible food, incredible service. I had a really nice time. I was treated well. And then I had a business lunch with this lady, and I wanted to impress her. So I'm like, let's go to Montecito Inn, because they know that they redid it after the mudslide, and it's beautiful.
Sure.
So I made a reservation. It's kind of funny because I was the only table there. It was I think 1:30 in the afternoon. They brought me a bowl of popcorn, and I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" Like, I got rid of the popcorn before she got there. I still don't know why.
Were you eating at the bar?
No, I have a table for lunch in this beautiful restaurant, and they bring me a bowl of popcorn. I'm like, "Can you please take this away?" I still don't know why they stopped serving popcorn at the Montecito Inn. Maybe at a 8th grade's birthday party or something, but not the Montecito Inn. So anyway, here's the thing. I used to work at a restaurant called the Epicurean. It was a fancy restaurant. But here's what we learned. When you walk up to a table and the two people are engaging in conversation, you didn't say a word. You just sat there until they acknowledged you and stopped talking, and then you would talk, which is the polite thing to do to anybody anywhere. But for some reason, these waiters now have no clue of that, and they think it's okay to bust right in right when you're in mid-sentence, like I'm talking about something that I needed to get off my chest, and this waitress comes up and just starts talking about, the soup or something, and I'm like, and the first couple of times it was annoying, but then like the fourth time, I was just like, I didn't know what to do. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. The food there, we got the it was, what was it? It was the Tornadoes of beef sandwich or something like that. It was just horrible. And I'm sorry, Montecito Inn, but bad deal. Bad food, bad service.
Just wasn't the experience you're hoping for, huh?
Beautiful restaurant. And after we had, and it's expensive too. And after lunch, we walk out, and she goes, maybe we could go to the Honor Bar next time. And I'm like, yeah, maybe we can. But what's going on with service these days? Because it's like that everywhere.
Well,
You had a situation.
They say there's a hiring shortage, and they say all that, but with hiring shortages, I bet there's probably just they're getting people, and they're just kind of putting them out there. So in all fairness to them, maybe some of these people aren't servers. They're not
Yeah, but it takes maybe 30 seconds to say, hey, don't interrupt a customer when they're talking.
Yeah, but
wait
I think
until
maybe
you're acknowledged.
that person that's
Maybe
supposed to tell him that probably doesn't exist
nobody
anymore.
told him.
Yeah, that person probably has never even been in a restaurant.
Have you heard right now everybody's quitting their jobs? Have you heard that?
I'm hearing this, yeah.
Like normal people with normal jobs are like, they saw Oprah one too many times. They're like, screw this. Why am I wasting my life making pizzas?
Well, there's all sorts of stuff going on. I mean, if you're a single parent, it's nearly impossible to go to work. If your kid has a sniffles
what do you
nowadays.
do? Now, I interrupt, but I know somebody that's a single mom, and the amount of money she makes, almost all of it goes to daycare.
Yeah. Well,
so why even do that?
Well, that's the thing. If you're a single parent and you've got, say, more than one child, say 3, or 4, I just don't see how that person can go to work. If one of those kids is sick, you have to stay home. You're still paying for daycare. You're still paying. And everything the way it is, and it's just not getting any cheaper for these people. So yeah, I could understand that.
I don't think people are making as much, as much money as they used to. My mom had 3 boys. We were pretty resilient. I can't imagine having a little girl. You have a little girl.
Uh-huh.
Now, I don't know if I'd want to just drop my little girl off at somebody's house.
Yeah, even babysitting, that's completely different now. Majority of them come to you now. That's changed. In the old days, you'd drop somebody off, and they'd have 7 other kids running around.
You were a little late today.
I was a little late
to
today.
The studio.
Yeah.
And you said that your babysitter was late.
Yeah,
and what did she say to you?
Now,
this is what I'm talking about. This is like the restaurant service.
Yeah.
Have zero clue. And your lady said,
"Oh, it's my bad."
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
bad.
that's the.
You say you're 15 minutes away from a live show. You have to do it. She said, "My bad."
That's the thing nowadays. Everything's. We're almost on island time now. You ever hear the term island time? If you're in Hawaii or something. Yeah, everything's just tomorrow. Everything's tomorrow. And that's kind of where we're at.
Man, I can't live like that. I was taught you're there 1 minute early, aside from being 10 minutes late. You are there early for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah,
respecting the meeting, yourself, the situation, everything. As soon as you come in late, you're flipping everybody off. You don't care about any of it.
Yeah, it's almost like time's a suggestion now. If someone says 8:15, it's like, be here around 8:15
ish. And they roll in a little bit late with a Starbucks cup.
15 minutes early, 15 minutes past, whatever it is.
And then if they're the only person that does whatever they're doing, you can't really yell at them either. You'll lose them. And
well, I mean, you still want to treat them like they're human. I mean, geez, man.
Yeah, but I mean, if they're working for you, they need to be on time.
Well, yeah, but
right, Oscar. Yeah, even if you go to the Eagles in L.A. the night before.
No, I think that's a good excuse.
Yeah, it's a good excuse.
Henley in L.A. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, tell that to the people who are tuning in at YouTube at 8:30 a.m. Tell those people
with nothing to do, sitting there at work.
Yeah.
Poor them.
I was going to tell you a story. How much time do we have? 10 minutes. Oh, I don't know if I can do this. I was going to talk about. I mentioned kids a lot. I don't regret anything. I've done a lot of stuff in my life, and I've had a lot of relationships, and we talk about jail and drugs and all that. I don't regret any of it. I don't regret any of these past relationships. Some people say, "Oh, I wish I would have hung on to her." It's all perfect, right?
All
except
an
for maybe
experience.
one in college. I had 2, and I had to choose one. And I asked my brother, Jason. He's the funny one. I asked, I this girl, what do I do? He goes, "Just remember, whichever girl you choose, it's going to be the wrong one." I'm like, "Thanks, Jason," and he was dead on. But anyway, I was going to be a father. I had a Brazilian girlfriend, and all of a sudden, within a year of the relationship, she got pregnant, and she was going to have a girl, and I was just beside myself, right? And I don't know if I have enough time for this, but anyway, I'll speed it up. So she told me that she had a miscarriage in another relationship years ago, and I'm like, okay. So I always kind of run in and do a little bit of looking up. So I went online and read about miscarriages, and one of the first signs is it drops down, when you're having troubles. So later on, she went to the midwife or whatever you call it, the person, and everything was fine. And then later on, she goes, I don't know if I'm going to have it early or not because I feel like it's lower. Anyway, it was a bad scene. So we went to the lady, and I called her up and I said, we need to come see you right away. And she had like a tennis lesson, and she was like, is there any way we can push this off? And I'm like, no, there's not. This is what's going on. So we go right there. And she said, yes, there's no heartbeat. And it was a really bad scene. But what was even worse was the way she acted. The nurse, the lady, the doctor, whatever she was. She said, I really need to be somewhere, so the best thing for you to do is just to go home and let it pass naturally. I'm like, are you kidding me? Of course we're not going to do that. We're not cavemen.
Wow.
So, yeah, so I had to tell her, we're going to the hospital. We're going to go to cottage, and we're going to do this thing like civilized people, right? I just don't want to deal with it. So anyway, we get there, and I'm not in the best of moods. And so she's in there, and this male nurse comes in and starts trying to put an IV in her arm. And I'm thinking, why do we need an IV in her arm? You just told her to go home. Well, obviously, we don't have IVs at home. So anyway, that was my brain. And he kept pushing. And she's a tough girl. And she starts hollering, going, you're hurting me. You're hurting me. So I finally walk out, and I start yelling, is there anybody in this hospital that knows what the hell they're doing? Well, that alone, a doctor came up to me. He said, yeah, a couple things. Number one, your question is yes. And number two, you're out of here.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean I'm out of here? And so I almost got thrown out of the hospital. I had to go in the other room. But anyway, that whole scene with that doctor was a bad deal. The way her bedside manners, is that what you call it?
Yeah, bedside.
It was amazing. And then, I don't know, so we were going to, give me time. 5 minutes. So we were going to go to Brazil. So after that, we were going to get married, right? And I thought, let's get married. And then now that we lost the baby, I thought there's really no reason to rush into that, right? Because we were going to do that for the baby. So in my infinite wisdom, I had a little chat with her, a day or two later, and I said, let's just wait for a year. And for whatever reason, that didn't sit well. I thought it would. I thought we could at least breathe, right? She just went nuts, right? I didn't get it. But then we had a trip. We had a trip to Brazil to go to meet her family, and we were going to get married there as well. Right before we left, her brother comes into the picture. The guy, not the sharpest knife in the drawer. He thought if he spoke more loudly, I would understand Portuguese, that kind of thing. And he wanted to stay at our house while he looked for a place. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. What can you do, right? Yeah. So he stays there 3-4 days. And then we're going to Brazil for 2 weeks. I'm like, you got to get your brother out of here. I don't want him in here. So we go to Brazil, and it was the movie Meet the Parents?
Uh-huh.
Totally that. I was that guy. I'm down to the nicotine gum, right? So as soon as we get there, I'm all jacked up from not sleeping for 12 hours. The mom loves me. The dad's like, dad. So he takes me out on the boat. We're in the Amazon River in the freaking jungle. And he has this 3-story boat. And he has 2 wet bikes, and the wet bikes are like his other children because you can only get parts in the U.S. and they're his reason for living. So he goes, let's me and you, let's go. So we're out, we're buzzing around, and again I haven't slept for 12 hours.
Yep.
And I'm flying. There's this a little island and a tree that goes like this that branches out, and I'm figuring that I'll just turn. I'm going as fast as it'll go, but I didn't know wet bikes don't turn.
Not well.
They don't turn.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to lean.
You got to let off the
eventually
throttle
you'll go that
sure.
way. But I just crash, right? And the next thing I know, I come to, the wet bike's just smashed with wires and controls hanging out. I'm bleeding all over. I get my clavicles cracked. Now there's piranha in the jungle, right? In the Amazon. And I'm looking down at all this blood, and I finally climb up, and about 20-30 minutes later, he finds me, and he starts yelling like a native. Hello, and I'm like, dude, look at me, man. And so they really don't have hospitals in Brazil. They have clinics with purple iodine, and anyway, they fixed me up, and anyway, so let's fast forward. Horrible trip, right? Went to Rio, ended up coming home. As soon as we got home at 3 a.m, I walk in my place, and the brother's on the couch. This is 2 weeks later. He's like, and I'm like, tell me if I'm wrong. I said, come here, so-and-so, I won't mention her name, but I brought her in the back room, and I said, it's 3 a.m. Your brother was supposed to leave about 2 weeks ago. Go get his stuff and get him out of here right now, because I was about to snap. And she said, Ben, it's 3 a.m. I'm like, I don't care what time it is. And so she did, and he left. And so so far, was I way off base on that?
No.
Okay, good. So the next morning, I had this huge, when you have someone from Brazil pick furniture out, you get like stone, crazy furniture. So the table was moved, and I moved it over in the morning, and I saw this because it's a huge living room, and there's this huge patch that looked like Africa that was bleached, and I'm like, oh. And I know this kid doesn't have any money to speak of, and I'm like, I want you to go ask your brother what happened to the carpet. And so a couple days later, I said, "You talk to your brother?" "Oh yeah, I did." And I said, "What did he say about?" "Oh, he doesn't know what happened."
Yeah, it just happened.
And I'm like, "And are you staying? You're siding with him on that?" He goes, "Well, if he doesn't know, he doesn't know." And I'm like, that's when I knew it was over. It was me against them, and I wasn't going to live my life like that. So, yeah, eventually it eroded from there, and I just, yeah. But I mean, obviously, it ended up because they used bleach on everything to clean up. He made some fish stew or something and spilled it, and used bleach on the carpet and cleaned it up. But why wouldn't she? I mean, we knew he couldn't pay. Why not just say, yeah, obviously he did it? But when she took his side, I'm like, this is what I'm going to look forward to the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to nix that.
Pain for him.
How much time do we have? 3 long minutes. Give me some of your holiday traditions that you're about to jump into.
Staying home.
Staying home.
That's a new tradition for us.
Yeah.
I think that was a new tradition with the whole quarantine thing. It was like, hey, whoa, we're staying home this holiday season?
Yeah, I have a friend in London, England, and I called her the other day and I said, find me a Tudor mansion, not a mansion, find me an English house in a neighborhood in London, and I just want to stay there for a week or a week and a half in the pouring down rain. It's like a past life I used to live.
Be like
there.
Sherlock Ferguson.
I just want to walk down the street with a normal neighborhood and wave to everybody and go buy the beefsteak and kidney pie in a can like they do and go back to the house and have a fire. That's what I want.
Yeah.
Because honest to God, I know I lived there. I had to have 1700s or something like that. I'm yearning to go back.
Well, get back there so you can figure out if you're from there.
But she says, well, you need to go here and here in Manchester and Chester and all these places. And I'm like, I just want to hang out in the house. I just want to sit in the living room with a fire. Doesn't that sound nice?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Maybe put a little tree up and
that's the holidays.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. What will really happen is probably I'll just be right here or Vancouver or something like that.
Yeah. Do something Christmassy.
But Halloween, you making decorations with your kids?
I think this is the year we're actually going to do it, and it looks like we're probably going to be passing out candy and everything this year.
Let me tell you real quick. When I was a kid, my mom got all the different black paper, white paper, orange paper, and she sat around with us on the picnic table, and we all made ghosts and pumpkins and put them on the wall, and I have the best memories of that. I don't know why, but I do. So do that with your kids, because they'll just love that stuff. It seems silly, but man, putting all this stuff all over the windows, and she would tape it all over the living room.
Man, it's cool seeing your own stuff up there as a kid.
Yeah. That's it. Another episode of Real Talk Live. This is John Catadella. Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next time.